So I wanted to talk about the design of a verge, and so I'm actually here with Nicole, who's operating the video, but is also the owner of this verge, and so I'm going to talk about my vision for the design, and I'm hoping that if she doesn't agree with me as we go along, she'll let me know. So what we've got here, as you can see, obviously we've got the roadside, we've got a drive here, we've got the neighbour's drive down there. And so in terms of the design, there's a couple of factors which is just really important to consider at the start. The first one is the council requires a 2-metre strip. If you haven't got a pavement, if you've got a pavement, you don't need to worry about it. But if there's no pavement, you have to have a 2-metre strip here, which would be roughly 1, 2, so it would be out to about here. They don't like any plants in this area. You can wood chip it, and in practice what you could do is plant a ground cover about here and let it spread out into this area. But these ground covers must be really low and mustn't present a trip hazard. The other reason to keep this 2-metre strip is if the council does decide to put a pavement down the side of this road, which they could, then they're going to put it in that strip there. So if you've put a lot of plants in here, you're going to lose them. Okay, the other things which you must consider is we've got a driveway here. As you're coming out of a driveway, motorists need to have good visibility up and down the road. So you don't want to put anything on this verge which is going to be above about this high, which is going to be in a motorist sightline. So I would recommend ground covers down here, and the first place that you begin to put any sort of like high shrub would be back at this level here. And here I wouldn't plant a shrub which was above about this level, because a motorist is still then going to be able to see over the top of it. And I'm particularly cautious when I'm dealing with a neighbour's drive, so I'm particularly careful about not planting anything too high down at that end.
And you don't want to be pruning these bushes, like...
Well, I know you're going to be pruning them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yes, so let's talk about that, because native gardens, people have this myth that native gardens are, easy care. It's just not true. A native garden needs as much love and attention as any garden. Native plants respond really well to pruning. If you prune a native, it's going to be more shapely. It's not going to develop that awful straggly look which does happen if you let them go. So when you prune, you get good strong growth coming back. You get nice, dense, compact shrubs. So definitely this will be being pruned. The thing is you don't want to plant something which wants to grow to 6 metres in an area where you want to plant which is 1 metre, because then you've got a lot of pruning. What you want is shrubs which are going to want to grow to 1 metre, 1.5 metres, and you're going to be pruning them down to about 1 metre or 70 centimetres. Much easier to prune. So that's some of the most important points when I'm considering how to design a verge. Then the other thing is looking at what we've already got here in the garden. So you can see the garden has got some established plants in it. They're mostly exotics, and what we're going to do is intermingle the natives with the exotics. So the basic principle, as I say, is we're going to start with ground covers down here at the front. We're going to come to shrubs of this sort of height, or ones which might want to grow up a little bit higher but that we can prune down and keep nicely shaped. And then as we come back over this way, we're going to start planting into bigger, bushier shrubs. But still we're going to want to not go too high, because we want to keep this visibility of these already established shrubs. So probably we're going to plant some bigger things in here, and then maybe have a tree, which I think perhaps might be about here. If you're going to put a tree, I would set it back from the road. The good thing about a tree is it's going to grow up, spread out, put no power lines overhead, so we're safe to plant there. So a nice small tree here. So larger shrubs or small trees in this area here, and then I think probably we'll have small shrubs or small medium shrubs coming into that area at the back there to sort of give space to these existing trees so that they can continue to grow and flourish. And then the other thing I really think I want to do, and I hope we can do on this verge, is you can see here, this is our border with our boundary with the neighbour. We've got a bedroom window just back there which is reasonably sheltered, but from this approach from the neighbour's drive, there currently isn't a screen into that room. And so what we're going to do is plant some form of hedge along here. And what I'm thinking along here, which I haven't told Nicole yet, is a mixed grevillea hedge. I've got a selection of grevilleas, and so what we'll get then is different contrasts of foliage, different flowers at different times of the year, but also different habits. We'll get different shapes, and so I'm hoping what we can have is a nice mixed hedge along here, which is going to have be really interesting to look at, but not get too big. So all the grevilleas I've picked are sort of in the 2 to 3 metre range, and then when they're pruned, we're going to be able to prune them down to about this height, keep them nice and dense. And so in terms of the hedge, we might carry it down to about here, but I think at this point where we're getting onto the verge again, the last grevillea we'd put in here would again be low, would be no higher than this, because this is the neighbour's post box, and also this is going to be one of the neighbour's main viewpoints up the street, so we definitely don't want to be causing any obstruction here. I think that's sort of it in terms of the overall design principles.
Yeah, you mentioned before at the other property where we filmed about planting natives to fill a gap, and then you can take out existing plants, you know, to have that.
Yeah, we can do that. If we were thinking of replacing the exotics in the garden, then, for example, if we go closer to this one, I mean, say if we were ultimately thinking of removing this tree, I'm afraid I'm not good on exotics, I don't even know what this is.
It's a frangipani.
Frangipani. So if we were going to take this frangipani out in the long run, then I would be inclined to here. I don't think we'd want to plant anything too big out here because I think we'd be filling the verge. So I'd probably be inclined to plant something quite big and bushy behind it.
Yeah.
And let that fill up behind it, and then when that's created that sort of big fill there, then we could consider taking out the frangipani at that stage.
Yeah.
But certainly, yeah, you can plant close round exotics with big native shrubs which are going to take over that space, and then prune the exotic back as the native grows.
So you don't have big gaps in your garden.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to leave huge gaps. You don't want to do a big clear and then leave gaps. Actually, we did a bit of clearing and have left huge gaps, but that's going to be space which we're going to put natives in.
True. Okay.
So we're here at a native verge. This was a verge on a rental property which I own, which this verge was funded by the City of Mandurah Waterwise workshops. So this is 3 years old, just to give you some sense of how well a garden can grow over 3 years. When I took this verge on, all that you can see along here on the verge, so beyond this side of the white fence, was just really scaggy grass. It was awful. And you can see now after 3 years, sprayed it, wood chipped it, put these plants in, and really they've had very little attention with it being a rental property. I get out here maybe like once, twice a year to do some work, but mostly this is just looking after itself. So really good example of how a garden can grow. It's had a bit of pruning, but not a huge amount of pruning. So we're just going to do a quick walk through. I'm going to show you some of the plants and explain some of the design features which are here as well. Okay, so as we go along, you can see, you'll see as we go around, it's a big corner. I've got a really nice big area to work into. So the basic design, as you can see down here on the roadside, we've got ground covers. So this is a Hemiandra pungens, very nice prickly ground cover. This is a beautifully big ground cover. This is a Grevillea crythmifolia, prostrate version, which is growing beautifully. So you can see ground covers on the outside, and then as we're going up towards the house, I've got bigger shrubs coming in. And so this is a Hakea laurina, which is going to grow up into a nice big shrub. And this is a Hakea oleofolia over here, which is going to grow into a big shrub. And the idea is that these big shrubs will grow up, and then in the far future, what I'm intending to do is then remove these oleanders, which are of course exotics. They don't belong here, they should be out. I don't want to take them out right now because they'll expose the house, but the idea is just to grow this up at the front, and then I'm growing some other natives beyond there, take those out and then let the natives fill into that gap. So that's the way I'm going for it in terms of redesigning the garden. So coming along this way, this is the Hakea oleofolia. Now this was crawling with bees before, and it is still now. So you can see it's in flower right now. We're here in April, and you can just see, look how beautiful the flowers is, and look at the bees on there. Can you come around here and get it from this side? Look at that.
Oh yeah.
That is thick with bees. So this is obviously really good for attracting the bees in, and also you may be able to hear in the background of the video the birds. They're a little bit quieter now than they were earlier on, but Certainly there are birds feeding up in this tree up here, this bottle brush. So this garden is, oh, there you go, crow. This garden is attracting birds and bees, which of course is the intention of the native garden. Oh, there we go. Hello. Okay, so coming around this way, you can see we've got another really beautiful ground cover here. This is an Acacia saligna, again a prostrate version. Usually this grows into a very big upright shrub or tree. But you can see here's what it's doing a beautiful job covering the ground here. And then moving on round.
And that's just one plant?
That's just one plant there, yeah. So the centre of it's in there somewhere. It's growing out nice and round. Pretty amazing, isn't it? Yeah. And then as we come round, you can see as we come round the corner, this side is looking certainly down on the edge. I've tried a number of different ground covers down on the edge here. They aren't doing so well, and that's because the ocean is, you can see the top of the dunes just over there in the distance. So that's the ocean over there. So the wind, you can feel the wind now here, is coming straight through. So this is getting sea breezes, and I think this is causing the plants to struggle a bit more here. And so I tried some Banksias on this side and lost them. Had a nice Banksia growing over there, I've lost that. So the Banksias don't seem to do well here, but what are doing really well is the Grevilleas. So that's actually an Adenanthos, not doing very well, but I'm going to leave it. That's a Grevillea. And then going this way, there's a whole load of Grevilleas which are doing really, really well in the coastal area. This shrub here is just 3 years old, which is pretty amazing. This is a Grevillea olivacea. So this is going to keep growing. It's going to grow up into a really nice big shrub. And again, you can see the plan here is this ground covers coming from the front here into smaller shrubs, into big shrubs, to give that sort of like depth going up across the verge from the low to the high and shielding the house. And so if we just carry on around here, see on this strip, this is where the ground covers just haven't done well. So I've tried a number of different ground covers and small shrubs in here. The ones which are doing okay is the Grevillea sea spray. That's a subspecies of Grevillea priesi. That's this one here. And then these Grevilleas, and there's a couple of small eucalypts which I got from a nursery up in Fremantle. I'm not entirely sure which ones they are, but they seem to be doing pretty well. They're local species. And these bush Grevilleas are doing very well. So these both came from Caramar Nursery. So they're subspecies of Grevillea, probably sort of related to priesi. So again, doing pretty well. And then you can see again, I'm just trying to get this to get up nice and bushy, just to protect this side of the house from the sea breezes. And then again, removing the exotics which were previously planted in the garden when I first bought the house. The exotics were already there. So that's pretty much it, just to give you an example of how good a verge can look after just 3 years. And so I think this is off to a great start, and I'm expecting this to keep growing up and out and filling out over the years. And that's it. Thank you. So as part of the City of Mandurah Waterwise Verge Program, you'll be receiving some plants, and these plants are going to be delivered to you by Caramar Nursery. Now I have those plants here, and I just want to show you them and give you the names of them, because they may not be labelled when you get them, and also give you some idea of how they're going to grow. Okay, so first off the bat, I'm going to start with the ground covers, and the first one I've got here is called Myoporum purpurea. This is a good spreading ground cover, forms a nice dense mat, 2 to 3 meters wide. You can see it's got this nice purple foliage, has a very small white flower which can be quite nice but isn't spectacular. Next up is this nice Grevillea. This is called Grevillea gem. It's a species of Grevillea obtusifolia. The full plant is very big. This is a nice ground cover. Again, this is a great spreader. I've seen these spread out to 5-6 meters when they really get going. So it will to cover a lot of ground. It gets a very nice dense mat on it, although you can still get weeds growing through it, but you can lift it up and weed underneath. I really like it. You're going to need lots of space for it, so make sure you leave plenty of room. And again, it's one to go by the roadside because it's going to be very low, very flat. And this next plant is Carpobrotus viviscens. This is commonly known as pig face. You'll be very familiar with this. It's a nice coastal plant, very hardy. Again, a very great ground cover. If you put this in, you'll get a nice spread off it. You're going to have to keep it pruned back, of course. Nice colour contrast to the other plants, different type of foliage, and it does have a nice flower when it flowers, so it looks good. And now we're getting into the slightly larger plants. So this is a Eremophila. This is Eremophila glabra. It's often called Calbari carpet. So this forms, as the name suggests, a spreading ground cover. This one's beginning off quite high, but it will spread out. Generally will grow to about this high from the pot, so that's there. And again, got this nice silvery grey foliage, pretty insignificant flower. You certainly wouldn't plant it for its flower, but for its colour it's very good, and will spread. Then we've got here Scaevola crassifolia. This is a bigger shrub. It's going to grow to probably about this high, maybe sort of like 1/2 metre to 3/4 of a metre. It's got this nice foliage. Again, flower isn't spectacular, but the foliage looks very great. And again, it's really hardy. It does very well in coastal situations. So I would begin to put this back from the verge, sort of in the second row of plants. Then we have Leucophyta brownii. You can see this has got the beautiful silver grey foliage, fabulous contrast plant. It does go well alongside the Scaevola crassifolia, which I just showed you. This will mound up, spread out a little bit. You'll get maybe a metre, metre and a half spread on it. Grows up to around about 3/4 of a metre to a metre. Unfortunately, it doesn't prune really well, so after a few years you're going to need to replace it because it just begins to get woody. Over those first 3, 4, 5 years, it's going to look great, and then of course you can just replace it with another one. It will look very, very good. So it's a great. Then we've got this shrub here, which is Alaria languinosa. The nursery calls it Ghost Town. So I like this shrub a lot. This has got a nice fine foliage. Again, it's not really impressive in flower, but it's got this lovely colour and shape. It does prune very, very well. You can keep it in a nice mound. It'll sort of spread out to around about a metre, maybe a little bit more. Again, at height of about 1/2 metre, 3/4 of a metre. Keep it well pruned, you'll keep it nice and dense. Anagoxanthus flavidus. This is a red variety. This is very reliable, very, very hardy. This is going to grow up very tall, so the leaf will grow up to about a metre, and then depending on the soil conditions, but in good soil, the flower stalks will get up to 2 metres. So you're going to get some really nice high flowers with this. The beautiful red of the kangaroo paw. Next in the strappiness is Conostylus candicans. You can see this lovely silvery grey leaf that it's got, and you can already see here it's putting out one of its flowers, this nice yellow flower. Typically these will throw out multiple flower stalks, so you get a nice show of flower. This is very beautiful. I would put it in front of kangaroo paws if you're going to put them together. This is going to always be smaller than the kangaroo paws. The kangaroo paws probably need to be more to the back of the garden because they can get very big and very clumpy. This will spread, but not a huge amount. So the most it's ever going to get is to like from here down to about there. And then lastly, we've got Grevillea thelemaneana. This is a nice grevillea, very, very hardy. It's beautiful foliage, green foliage. Has a nice red flower on it. Not very significant flower, but you can see it. Again, this is going to spread nicely. You'll probably get about 1.5 meters, maybe 2 meters out of the spread. Perhaps a meter, 1.5 meters in height off it. Nice mounded spreading shrub. Those are the plants you're going to be receiving from Caramar. You'll be getting 2 of each, which will be delivered. Depending on the size of your verge, those plants should be enough to get the garden off to a good start. And if you want some other plants, then I'm going to be talking about that in another segment on this video. Nicole, these are all plants that I've bought from either Men of the Trees, the Peel branch, or from the Australian Native Nursery, which is in Oakford. These are the 2 places I get my plants from. I love both of them. They grow in tubes. The Men of the Trees have got a really good selection of plants which are adapted for the Mandurah region, native to the Mandurah region, and their range is not really broad. And so the reason I go to the Australian Native Nursery in Oakford, which is a bit of a journey, is because Nancy Cade, who runs the nursery, has got a fabulous selection of really interesting plants, many of which you can't find anywhere else. And so I go there. Now, some of them it's a bit chancy. You put them in the ground, they might survive, they might not, but it's always worth a gamble. So they're only $5 each if you buy them from the nursery. So yeah, anyway, so I've got lots of plants. If you want to add any variety to the plants you're going to get from Caramar, please feel free to get in touch with me, and I can either tell you what plants to get, or you can head to the nursery yourself and buy them. Okay, so I was just talking with Nicole about some of the plants we're thinking of putting in the garden, and I was talking about that grevillea hedge along the side of the house, and so I was just showing her some species here. So we've got this one here, which is Grevillea wind paragem, which is a 2 to 3 metre by 1 to 2 metre shrub. So I'm thinking this one close to the bedroom window to fill it up and out. And then this is a different grevillea. This is it's just Grevillea cross semperiflorens. So this is a 2 metre by 2 metre shrub. And the thing I was talking with Nicole about is if you just look, and then this is another grevillea. This is about 1.5 by 2 metres. So all these three together, they're going to all be up about this high, out nice and wide, and they should form a really nice bushy hedge. But you can see this one's just finished flowering, this one's in flower, and this one hasn't flowered at all. But you can see they've all got different foliage and different structures, so they're going to make for a really interesting contrast planted together. And as they begin to intermingle, we can shape them and I think create a very, very interesting looking hedge there. So that's those. And then I've got this one here, which is again a cross between one called Biopinita feeder and Clearview Robin Sunrise. I think this goes to about 1.5 meters and spreads out to about 2 meters. So I think this one is like, you know, down near the neighbour's post box, could be suitable there because it's not going to be too high, but it's, and again you see the foliage contrast. It's just a very
nice.
Different leaf shape, different colour. So again, I think if we just kind of pick the right heights, I think that one up near the window, and then coming down this way, coming down this way, then we're going to be able to create a really nice textured, multi-layered hedge.
That was the eyebrows up to raise your demonstration higher.
Hold was
higher.
it?
Was that?
Which one were you filming, me or the plants?
I'm trying to get both in the same shot.
Okay. Do you think that's enough? What do you want to talk about?
What about ground covers?
Oh yeah, the ground covers. So, so the ground covers. There's some of the trees, some plants over there which come from many of the trees which I want to use. I haven't really got them all out yet. I've got this acacia, which is I've never used before. It says it gets to about 50 centimetres. I'm not sure what the spread's going to be, but I just really like the look of the foliage, and I think this is. I'm hoping this is just going to form a nice small rounded shrub. We'll see. I'm going to put this in the ground probably about that deep. I was talking before about deep planting. And then I've got a Banksia here which I absolutely adore. This is a Banksia called Banksia blecknifolia, creeping Banksia. This is never going to get above about, you know, from the ground about that high, and it can get a spread of about 2 meters on it. It's very slow growing, but when it grows, it's got really nice big fat Banksia leaves, and then the flowers are these Banksia cones about this high, which are absolutely gorgeous orange, and it's just amazing in flower. And then of course the nuts afterwards are absolutely fabulous as well.
Cool.
So that's the two main ground covers. Sorry, they're not the two main ground covers at all. I've got some other ground covers which are in the middle of here, which I'm not sure where they are at the moment, but they're I've got a Grevillea ground cover called Gin Gin Gem, which is one of the ones coming from Caramar. It's an absolutely tremendous ground cover. The only downside with Gin Gin Gem is it's very vigorous, and somebody I garden for, Terry, he's got one which has got a spread of about 6 meters.
Whoa.
In 4 years.
Whoa.
So there is a danger you put that in, you're always pruning. It's not really a danger, it just means you have to trim it.
But yeah, you just need a big space for it, basically.
Yeah, and then you've got to keep trimming it. But on a verge like ours,
yes,
we can put that somewhere near the centre of the verge. The spread's going to be tremendous.
Great.
And another one I was thinking of putting in there is this quite prickly ground cover over here. This is a ground cover called Hemiandra pungens. So this forms a really nice dense mat, spreads out, and it's got a beautiful purple flower when it comes into flower. You want this up here, don't you?
Thank you.
It's got a beautiful purple flower when it comes into flower, but this one's really, really good dense mat, and because it forms a dense mat, it seems to suppress the weeds as well. So you actually end up with very little weed growth through this. So this is another one of my favourites. So we'll definitely be putting one of those in, I think. And then we're also going to put some kangaroo paws in. And then the other thing which we were talking about was the coming up from the ground covers into the sort of low shrubs, which are going to be the sort of first row of shrubs. And so ones I'm thinking of for there is this is Melaleuca nessophylla, and it's called Little Nessie. Now this is a hybrid or a subspecies which stays small. The full shrub grows to about 5 meters and can turn into a tree. So you just have to make sure you pick carefully. But this one gets to no more than about a meter or a meter and a bit. So it's going to be about waist high, and forms a nice rounded shrub. So that should be great for pruning. Beautiful purple flower. Then this one's a bit of a gamble. This is a Calatrix tetragona. So this flowers in flower. This is truly spectacular. Just beautiful pink flower. My only reservation is I haven't had a lot of luck in getting them to grow. So it's a bit of an experiment. I'm hoping it's going to be all right. There's one out at the garden I'm looking at after in Dawesville, Lorna's place, which is actually going okay. So I'm hoping we can get this to grow. If we can get it to grow, it's going to fill out into a nice shrub, fairly open habit, and the flowering is, as far as I can make out, towards the stalk ends, and should be beautiful pink flower. Certainly with pictures I've seen, it looks spectacular. So I think that's probably the ones we were talking about. Oh, and then this is our Hakea that we're going to put in. It's not the Lorena, this is a Hakea called Hakea petiolaris, which is somewhere else in the videos, in one of the other verges. This grows up into a really nice bushy shrub, fairly open habit, and it's got a beautiful sea urchin type flower. So it forms a lovely flower when it forms.
Nice.
Like the pincushion Hakea, but better. I think that's probably.
And what are these clumpy ones?
Oh, this is a gorgeous one as well. I can go on like this all day long.
Yeah, I got to do dinner soon.
Yeah. This is called a Melaleuca incarna. Again, this is normally a very big shrub. This is a dwarfing variety, and you can see this has got this nice silvery grey foliage. So I'm thinking of planting that near this. You see, for the contrast. And then the other shrub that I'd put with this is Pamelia ferruginea, which is this one over here. Oops, not that one there, this one here. It's a middle of the tree shrub. And so you see each of these has a habit of growing sort of up and into a nice ball shape. And so this has got pink pom-pom flowers on its end. This has got purple flowers on its end, and this has got a fairly reasonably insignificant white flower, but it's beautiful for its foliage. So I'm thinking those three close together, we're going to make a spectacular grouping. And then if we add in, quite advanced on these plans, if we add this in as well, this is Leucophyta brownii, which is just has this silvery grey foliage. Doesn't really, I can't do that, I'm going to break an arm. Doesn't really look good in flower. Doesn't really flower, it's not spectacular flower, but it's got this beautiful grey foliage, and it forms just a really nice ball, which is going to be around about waist height. So I'm thinking, just see how like those four together, like that contrast is just absolutely spectacular, isn't it?
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is the plant design bit of it, like just kind of picking out.
Sure.
Now you're asking about those strappy plants there.
Yeah. Looks like,
These ones here.
yeah, they're not kangaroo paws, are they?
No, these are Conostylus candy cans. Sometimes people call them. Can't remember the name. What they call them?
Pom-pom. No.
Yeah, they've got a kind of cotton bud or something. They call them. They've got a yellow. So when they grow, this is going to fill out. So it's going to get up to about here in leaf, and then it's going to throw out a flower stalk, or multiple flower stalks, and it's going to have a yellow pom-pom flower on the top of it. And that yellow flower is really beautiful. It's spectacular when it comes into flower. So these I would always plant in a group. I wouldn't just plant one of these on its own. Caramar does have these. I think they're going to give you 2 of them. I would never plant under 5 as a group, and just kind of space them, about that much apart, and then they'll fill out, and you'll just get a mass. And then when they flower, they look great. Over time, they don't look so good. You have to sort of trim them back a little bit, because they can get a bit of a dead head look on them, but that can be dealt with. That's it, I think.
Thank you.
Oh, no, can I show I just want to show you one other. Just want to show you, like, these are the verticordias.
Mm-hmm.
And the verticordia means?
Turner of Hearts.
Turner of Hearts, there you go. This is why I love the Australian native nursery. I don't know anywhere else to buy these plants. These are verticordias. Okay, so these are not native to Mandurah by any stretch of the imagination. These are wheat belt plants, dry desert plants. So whether they'll do okay here is debatable. They're a bit of a gamble. Again, out at Lawrence indoors, where I've managed to get a patch of these growing, and they're in their coming towards the end of their first year, and they're going really, really well. These are spectacular in flower from what I've seen of pictures. I've never had the good fortune of seeing them in the flesh, but I'm hoping to. So I've got just a variety of different sorts. And each of these is a shrub. Mostly they're going to sort of like get to about waist height, I think. They could end up being a bit woody and straggly, but at the moment they don't look like they're going to do that. And if we can get them to grow and they can flower, then I just think they're going to make a really spectacular display. So I'm thinking these sort of like, we've got the ground covers and then we come up into the sort of medium shrub size. Possibly in the garden we might have a patch of these, which I hope will then make a really spectacular display.
Would they, because they're the same species, would they all flower at the same time?
To be honest, I don't know. I can have a look on the labels here. That says August to December. Doesn't specify. December to January, August to October. Not really.
Not
so
really.
They'll be flowering at different times. So hopefully but the flowers are small. You get a lot of them, and they look. They're just very striking. And again, I mean, like, look at that range of foliage on there.
Yeah.
It's just incredible, isn't it? How the contrast you can get.
Yeah.
So again, because these are all upright growing plants, I'm thinking to group these together so they've got similar habits, sit together. Anyway,
Nice.
I just want to show you this. I'm excited about it. Right?
That's it.
I should do, I reckon, don't you? I'm sure there are more plants I could talk about, but yeah, not finished.